Around 1,000 people in Guernsey do not have secure housing. Now the charity Caritas is looking to help address that by not just providing accommodation, but also the support needed to combat the issues that have led someone into homelessness in the first place. I'm Nick Mann, and in this episode of The Interview, I talked to Caritas Chairman Graham Merfield after they appealed for land and funding for the project. Graham, thank you for joining me in the Bailiwick Express studio today. Obviously here to talk about the latest Caritas project and homelessness in Guernsey. And I wonder if you could just begin by outlining what the problem is that you're looking to address.
So thank you for having me in to do the podcast today, Nick. I really appreciate it. So the problem that we're trying to address is really, I suppose, a combination of housing insecurity and social exclusion. There are lots of reports on the levels of housing insecurity in Guernsey. Typically, we see numbers around 1,000 people, but I think one of the key points that we're also trying to address through the support we want to offer is other factors that leads people to get into this position.
Would you say homelessness in Guernsey is more of a hidden problem than we may see in the UK and elsewhere?
I think it definitely is. I mean, in the UK, it's often we see people sleeping in doorways or living on the streets. That's not obvious in Guernsey. Whilst we know there are people in that difficult situation, I think the bigger issue here is people who are sofa surfing, living with friends or family. There are people living in bed and breakfasts. There are people living in tents, in cars. So that it's quite dispersed and really not so visible. But I think, particularly with some of the media attention over the last few months, people are now becoming aware that it is an issue.
And it's a complex issue as well. It's not just about housing costs, for example.
No, so I think people typically get into a position where they're homeless or housing insecure through a combination of factors. And there's been a lot of publicity about availability and cost of housing and the cost of living in Guernsey, which clearly is a factor. But typically housing insecurity or homelessness comes through a combination of that with another issue in somebody's life. That could be something like losing your job, could be a relationship that's broken down, somebody coming out of prison who's trying to get back on their feet, somebody who's suffered from addiction. So a combination of these factors can lead to a very rapid downward spiral in somebody's life and difficulty.
And from Caritas's perspective then, what is it that you're looking to do to help?
So we want to put a roof over somebody's head to put them in a more comfortable position by providing a home for a period of time. But we want to do that in combination with providing some level of support. So the community that we're looking to build will have a community leader who is responsible for working with the person living in the community to help them on their journey to get back into a more secure housing position long term, and also to help with issues like employment or other support that person might need. And we envisage that we would be working with other charities and other organisations on the island to provide that person with the support they need in their circumstances.
And in terms of that community, so it's a modular housing solution. Like how many units? Who's aimed at? Single people, families? Take us through that a bit.
Yeah. So we are aiming to build the community in two phases. So the first phase would have 12 units, and the second phase would build that up to 24 units. We've decided to go with a modular housing approach because we think this addresses the need quickly. So these units are built in a factory in the UK. They can be shipped in, basic concrete pad and utilities, and basically you plug them in and you're ready to go. So it's a quick solution and relatively low cost as well. The cost of building in Guernsey and the time to do that, both can be high cost and take a long time. So we see this as a way to do something in a relatively short time frame once we've found somewhere that we can site this community.
So there's two sides to that, isn't there? The appeal has gone out for both funding and for land as well.
Yes. For us, the real need is to find somewhere to site this community. and we've identified some potential sites, and we've got a dialogue going on with a number of parties. But one of the reasons for raising more attention to our project is to put the appeal out for help with finding somewhere to do this. Secondly, we need funding. We do have some funding on hand that can get us going, but clearly we need to raise about another £1 million. But me being optimistic, I'm quite confident that we will get the support we need from the community over time to raise that money.
Modular housing's been topical. It's certainly been something that's been looked at as an affordable housing solution from the state's perspective and other social housing providers, but there's been some stumbling blocks we've seen along the way as well. And E&I are now out looking at whether modular housing can be used in Guernsey. Does that concern you at all?
We have tried to address some of the concerns that have been raised. So, we've provided information on fire testing for these units. We've tried to address potential concerns around the marine environment that we have here in terms of, the housing we would use for the heat pumps, etc. So we believe that these units would be suitable. They're being used in a community in Cornwall, which has a fairly similar environment to us. So we think that based on the conversations we've had with the supplier, we think they will be suitable. I think it's also important to understand that there are different types of modular housing solutions. So, some of them are sort of factory built pieces that are bolted together on site. These are actually 4 by 8 meter units that are built, and they're complete with a kitchen, with a sitting area, bedroom, bathroom, etc., fitted down to crockery and towels. So literally everything is in place and they're ready to go. So they are probably slightly different to some of the other solutions that are being looked at to provide housing here. The units that we're looking at are suitable for single people. We believe the largest need is, with probably with men over the age of 25. They typically, have a longer wait on housing waiting lists, etc. So we see that as probably the largest demographic that we would be supporting. There are units available for couples and families, and we might consider those as a solution in the future.
How do you get people once they've been established within that community? Obviously, one of the roles is to move them on, essentially, isn't it? So how do you go about that, or what's the plans in place for that?
We know that moving people on will potentially be a challenge because of the pressure on housing on the island. Our goal is to be part of the solution, and we hope and we believe that other people will help solve other pieces of the puzzle that we're all working towards here. What we're aiming to provide is effectively a breathing space for somebody for, say, 6 months to 2 years. That might enable them to build up funding to put a deposit down on a private rental. It might give them the time to wait out a wait list for states housing, at the same time as building out other areas of their life where they may need support.
What's led Caritas to move in this direction for this project? Because for a lot of people, they might associate Caritas with the community cafe in Mill Street.
Yeah, so Caritas has been around since 2007, and the original goal of the charity was to build a residential community to help people in need on the island. The cafe sort of came along, and we worked through the cafe to support people on the island for a number of years, and the cafe was split off in 2021 when the lease changed, and it's now a standalone charity on its own and still very successful. That allowed us the time to go back and refocus on the original mission for the charity. And we've spent 2 or 3 years looking at various plans, and we've travelled to the UK a number of times to look at communities in the UK that are looking to address homelessness and social exclusion. And we've learnt a lot through that process. Our original goal was to build a residential community with a social enterprise attached. And through the work we did, we realised that that would be, a 5-year plus project and £5 million plus of cost, which is a big hurdle to get over. We saw these modular units at the Emmaus community in Cambridge, and that triggered our thoughts around, well, could we do something that's faster and lower in cost as a first step to helping people in the community?
That's brilliant. And there's any final message as well?
Well, I think I'd just like, we put our media release out earlier this week, and I'd really like to thank the community for the overwhelming support that we've received in the last few days. And maybe just also to go back to what we're really looking for is help with land and looking for funding for the future. And if anyone has any ideas or they would like to offer their help of support, please contact us through our website, caritas.org.gg, Facebook page, Instagram, whatever works for you.
That's brilliant. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Nick.